It started on a gray Wednesday morning, the kind where the sky hangs low and everything feels just a little bit off. Most people in the city didn't notice anything unusual. The morning rush was the same. Coffee orders, car horns, news feed blinking with the same stories. But far from the noise, on the quiet, ivy-walled outskirts of Westridge Heights, something strange was unfolding at the mansion of Benedict Hawthorne, a man whose name meant power, privacy, and an untouchable fortune. At precisely 6:47 a.m., a woman appeared at the front gate of the estate. She wasn't shouting or begging. She wasn't holding a sign or making demands. She simply stood there in a faded yellow raincoat, her face hidden by the hood, her posture still as a gravestone. At first, the guards assumed she was lost or disturbed. After all, no one came to the Hawthorne estate unannounced. Not without consequences. Dale Mercer, the head of security, watched her on the monitor for nearly an hour. The estate had layers of surveillance, sensors, and a private response team for any real threat. But this woman didn't fit the profile. She didn't try to climb the gate or call out for help. She didn't move at all. The rain came harder as the morning stretched into afternoon, soaking her completely. Still, she didn't flinch. Dale eventually sent 2 guards to check on her. They approached cautiously, expecting her to react, but she didn't. When they offered her food, water, and even a ride to the nearest shelter, she only whispered, "I'll leave when he comes out." Her voice was soft, but there was something unsettling about the certainty in her tone. One of the guards asked. She said nothing more. When Dale relayed this to Benedict Hawthorne, the billionaire didn't look up from his glass of whiskey. "Let her stay," he muttered. "She'll be gone by morning." But he was wrong. By the second day, word had started to spread. A news drone caught footage of her from a distance, and within hours, the video hit social media. Comments poured in. Who was she? A stalker? An ex-lover? A protester? She was already being called a woman in yellow. But no one could find her identity. Facial recognition returned nothing. No matching missing persons reports. She was invisible in every system that should have known her. That night, Dale once again asked Benedict if they should intervene, call the police, or at least have her removed. But Benedict said nothing, only staring out the window at the motionless figure beyond his gate. Inside the house, the tension was building. Ellis, Benedict's 19-year-old son, had started having dreams. At first, they were vague, flashes of a hallway, a lullaby, a pair of dark eyes. But by the second night, they turned vivid. He saw himself as a child, standing in a dim room, clutching a stuffed fox while a woman knelt before him, humming a tune that made his skin crawl with familiarity. He couldn't remember her face when he woke up, only the yellow of her coat. On the third morning, he woke up drenched in sweat, convinced he had seen the woman from the gate in his dream, only younger, smiling, and calling him Baby Fox. He didn't know what it meant, but something inside him whispered that this wasn't just coincidence. Meanwhile, the woman remained. She hadn't eaten, hadn't left, hadn't so much as looked away from the gate. She sat now, cross-legged on the stone path, as though she belonged to the earth itself. Beside her sat a small white box, wrapped in string and old paper. No one saw her place it there. It had just appeared. The guards were now reluctant to approach her at all. They said she made them feel uneasy, like stepping too close would invite something terrible. But curiosity got the better of them. Dale, accompanied by 2 of his most trusted men, finally retrieved the box once she stood and walked into the woods behind her without a word. She didn't run. She didn't look back. She simply disappeared into the trees, and they didn't follow. Inside the box was a worn jewelry case. Inside that, an old silver locket. And inside the locket, a photo. It showed a much younger Benedict Hawthorne, standing beside a woman with sharp, familiar eyes, wearing the same yellow raincoat. In her arms was a baby, wrapped in a blue blanket. Alongside the locket was a note written in neat cursive. "You can hide a life, Benedict, but not the truth. It always finds a door." When Ellis saw the photo, he froze. There was no mistaking it. That was his father, and though he didn't recognize the woman, something in his chest clenched so hard it hurt. He looked to Benedict for answers. "Who is she?" he demanded. Benedict sat in silence, the color draining from his face. He took the photo and stared at it for a long time before finally whispering, "She was never supposed to come back." Ellis recoiled. "You knew her?" But Benedict didn't reply. He just turned to the window again, staring out at the space beyond the gate where the woman had stood, as though haunted by a ghost he thought he'd buried long ago. Outside, the rain had stopped. The birds were returning. But inside the Hawthorne estate, the calm was a lie. A storm was beginning to brew, not in the sky, but in the foundation of the family itself. A storm tied to a past long hidden, a life once erased, and a woman who refused to be forgotten. For 3 days, she waited at his doorstep. But the real story was just beginning, because she hadn't come to be noticed. She'd come to be remembered. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Benedict Hawthorne locked his study door and didn't come out for 24 hours. Not for meals. Not for calls. Not even for the knock from Mei Lin, his personal assistant, who rarely dared disturb him unless it was a matter of life or death. But in a way, it was, because a woman in the yellow coat, who had stood silently at his gate for 3 days, had dropped a match into the gasoline-soaked wreckage of his past. And now, it was burning. Ellis had never seen his father like this. Benedict was always composed, sharp, unreadable like a locked safe. But when Ellis confronted him with the locket, the one with a faded photograph of his father, that strange woman, and a baby, something inside the man visibly shattered. His hands trembled as he held it. His voice broke when he said, "She was never supposed to come back." And then, silence. He hadn't said a word since. Ellis spent that day wandering the estate in a daze. His thoughts ran wild. That woman, whoever she was, had left something behind that cracked through the stone shell of the great Benedict Hawthorne. It wasn't just her standing at the gate. It was what she meant. And Ellis couldn't shake the feeling that somehow he was at the center of it, that she was connected to him. That night, he dreamed again. The same hallway, the same lullaby. But this time, he followed the woman in yellow through a door. Behind it was a nursery with soft blue walls and a mobile spinning overhead. A voice whispered behind him, "You knew me once, before the lies." When he woke up, the sheets were soaked with sweat, and his heart was pounding with more than just fear. It was recognition. Meanwhile, in the cold echo of the Hawthorne mansion's halls, whispers were spreading like frost. Staff avoided eye contact, speaking in hushed tones. Mei Lin paced the library, reading and rereading an old file she kept locked away for years, a file Benedict had ordered destroyed. But she didn't, and now she was wondering if it had all been inevitable. At noon, a black sedan pulled through the estate's gate. Evangeline Hawthorne had returned from her Vienna trip early, summoned by Mei Lin. The moment she stepped into the foyer, the mood shifted. She wasn't the type to flinch at storms. She was a storm. Dressed in a tailored black coat with high boots and crimson lipstick, Evangeline looked like someone carved from marble, but her eyes betrayed something darker when she saw the locket on the table. She didn't ask where it came from. She didn't need to. "It's her," she said quietly. "Who?" Ellis asked. But again, silence. Evangeline found Benedict in his study, still staring at the photo. "You said she disappeared," she said. "You swore she was gone." Benedict didn't respond at first. Then, slowly, he said, "I thought she was. I thought we buried it deep enough." "You buried her, Benedict." He flinched at that. Back in the main hall, Ellis took the locket and studied the baby in the photograph again. The more he stayed, the more something inside him shifted. That wasn't just a baby. That was him. Same eyes. Same little birthmark near the collarbone. His entire body tensed. The timeline didn't make sense, unless the woman at the gate wasn't some stranger or protester. Unless she was his mother. Everything Ellis had ever known began to tilt. His memories were filled with tutors and nannies, but no motherly lullabies, no warm embrace, no bedtime stories. Evangeline had always been distant, cold, never the nurturing type. She had entered his life when he was 6, already Benedict's wife, already part of the empire. But before that, a gap, a blank space, a silence where someone should have been. Ellis stormed into his father's study, slamming the locket onto the desk. "Tell me the truth," he said, voice shaking. "Who is she? Was she my mother?" Benedict stared at him, broken and gray. You don't understand what you're asking. Then make me understand. Silence. And then, finally, the dam cracked. Her name was Miriam Vale. She had once been Benedict's secret. Not just a lover, something deeper. Someone from before the empire, before the billions, before the cameras and the boardrooms. They had met when Benedict was nothing more than a scrappy coder with big ideas and no reputation. She had been a poet, a dreamer, a woman who saw something in him the world hadn't yet noticed. They fell in love in a way that made time irrelevant. And then Ellis came. But then came the company, the investors, the expectations. A child out of wedlock with a woman who didn't fit the brand? Unthinkable. So they buried it. Benedict was told to clean it up, cut ties, rewrite the narrative. And when Miriam resisted, things got ugly. Lawyers, threats, a settlement she never signed. She disappeared with Ellis, only for Benedict to track them down months later. There was a custody fight. Money changed hands. And in the end, Miriam walked away without her son. She never came after us, Benedict whispered. Not once. Until now. Ellis stood frozen, hands clenched at his sides. You lied to me my entire life. We did what we had to, Evangeline said coldly, appearing in the doorway. You're not my mother, Ellis snapped. Evangeline's face went hard, but she didn't deny it. Outside, the clouds rolled in again, as if the sky itself couldn't bear the weight of what had been said. That night, Ellis didn't sleep. He sat in his room, staring at the photograph, thinking of the woman in the rain. She hadn't begged. She hadn't fought. She had waited, quietly, for 3 days, and she had left when she knew the message had been delivered. A message not just to Benedict, but to him. He didn't care what lies they told. He had to find her. The next morning, before the staff awoke, Ellis slipped out of the estate and headed into the woods beyond the gate, the path she had taken when she vanished. He followed the trail through mist and mud, heart pounding. At the edge of the forest, he found something strange, a small wooden cabin. Old, weather-worn, half swallowed by the trees. And on the porch, the yellow raincoat, folded neatly. Beneath it, a note. I'm not gone. I'm waiting for you to remember. Ellis stared at the raincoat. It was folded with precision, as if it were a sacred object, not just a piece of clothing. The yellow fabric was still damp from the days it had spent in the storm, and yet it seemed untouched by time. Beneath it, the note lay pinned under a smooth, round stone. 5 words, written in black ink, trembled in his hands. I'm not gone. I'm waiting. The door of the cabin creaked as Ellis stepped inside. Dust floated through thin beams of light spilling in through broken slats in the walls. The place smelled like cedar, old paper, and rain. It was empty of people but full of memory. On the far wall, photographs were tacked in a crooked line, faded snapshot of a little boy playing in a garden, sitting on a swing, laughing with someone just outside the frame. In every photo, the boy was unmistakable. It was him. He moved slowly through the space, his fingers brushing over a small rocking horse, a weathered teddy bear, a rusting tin box full of broken crayons. And then he saw it. On a shelf near the window, there was a music box. It was shaped like a fox. Gingerly, he wound the key. A melody played, soft and familiar, the same lullaby from his dreams. His knees nearly buckled. This place, this was a memory given form, a piece of a life he had been made to forget. Outside, the forest was silent, save for the rustle of wind in the trees. It was as though nature itself was holding its breath. Ellis picked up the raincoat and the note and started back toward the estate. His mind was spinning. His heart felt like it had cracked open. He wasn't sure what he was going to say when he got home, or if he'd ever truly be able to look his father in the eye again. But one thing was certain, this wasn't over. She had left him breadcrumbs, not closure. And there was more she wanted him to find. Back at the mansion, Benedict was watching the footage from the estate's cameras over and over again. He paused on the moment the woman placed the box by the gate. He zoomed in. Her face, partially revealed beneath the hood, was older now, lined with pain and resilience. But those eyes, he had known them once like he knew his own hands. He hadn't told Ellis everything. He couldn't, because the truth was far more dangerous than just a buried affair or a stolen child. The truth was, Someone had lied to him, too. Years ago, after Miriam disappeared, Benedict was told she had died. A car accident. A confirmed body. He remembered the day clearly, his lawyer handing him the coroner's report. He remembered the cold numbness that followed. He had grieved in silence. He had raised Ellis under the false security that she was gone forever. But now, with every piece of the past unspooling in front of him, he wondered, had he been manipulated? Who had staged the death? And why? Ellis returned to the mansion just before nightfall. He walked into the study and dropped the raincoat and note onto his father's desk. "She's alive," he said. "She never left. She's been watching." Benedict stayed at the note. His jaw clenched. "You went into the woods." "There's a cabin," Ellis said, "full of my childhood. Photos, toys, that lullaby. I remember it now." Evangeline entered the room like smoke, silent, smooth, cold. "You should have left it buried," she said. Ellis turned to her, anger boiling. You knew this whole time." She didn't deny it. "What was best for the family," she replied. "You're not family," Ellis said. She smiled, just slightly. "No, I'm the reason your family survived." With that, she left, but the words clung to the walls like mildew. That night, Ellis stayed up reading the files Maylin had slipped under his door. She had once been Miriam's friend. Before everything changed, before she was pressured into betraying her. The file included old letters, pleas from Miriam, begging for help. One line stuck out to Ellis. "They told me to disappear, or they'd make me disappear. So I left, but I never stopped watching him. Never stopped loving him." Ellis called the number scrawled on the back of the note she left. It rang 6 times before someone answered. No hello, just breathing. "Is it you?" he asked. A pause. Then the voice. "You're not ready to know everything yet, baby fox. But you will be." He froze. That name again. His name, once. "Where are you?" "I'm nearby," she said. "You just need to look in the places they told you not to." Then the line went dead. The next morning, the world caught up. The story had hit national headlines. Mystery woman at Billionaire's gate sparks questions about Hawthorne legacy. Photos from the drone footage were everywhere. Speculation ran wild. And then, something even stranger happened. Ellis received a package. It was addressed to Ellisvale. Inside was a VHS tape and an old camcorder. He popped in the tape. Static, then snow. Then, a home video. A little boy, around 2 years old, laughing as a woman chased him through a sun-drenched garden. Her voice sang off camera, warm and real. "Come here, baby fox. Mama's gonna get you." Ellis's throat tightened. The camera turned. It caught her face in full. Smiling. Alive. And the timestamp? August 7th, 2009. 2 weeks after she was supposed to have died. He didn't just have a mother. He had proof someone had lied to destroy her. And now, he had nothing left to lose. The home video still played on the old camcorder, the grainy footage flickering like a ghost pulled from time. Ellis watched the woman twirl in the garden, sunlight pouring through her hair as a little boy. His younger self tumbled into her arms, giggling. That laughter didn't exist anywhere in his memories. They'd buried it deep, beneath layers of wealth and deception, under glass floors and marble ceilings. But here it was, unfiltered, undeniable. A life stolen. He sat motionless for a long time, the tape whirring quietly until it hit static. Then he rewound it and watched again. And again. Somewhere in the house, Benedict was watching the news. Every major outlet had latched onto the story. The footage of the woman at the gate had gone viral, spurring a tidal wave of conspiracy theories and speculation. Was she a stalker? A long-lost relative? A mentally unstable protester? None of them had guessed the truth. Not yet, but Ellis knew it was only a matter of time. That evening, Ellis confronted Maylin. "I want to know everything," he said, "and I don't want you to protect him anymore." She hesitated. Her loyalty to Benedict was forged from years of gratitude and silence, but even she had her limits. "I never agreed with what they did," she admitted quietly, "but I was told it was the only way to keep you safe." "Safe from what?" he demanded. She opened her drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Inside were court transcripts, surveillance reports, even psychiatric evaluations, none of which Ellis had ever seen. At the top of one sheet, subject, Miriam Vale, custody dispute resolution, classified addendum. She didn't leave willingly, Mei Lin said. They had her declared unstable. Had doctors sign off that she was unfit to parent. But it wasn't true. I met her. She wasn't unstable. She was heartbroken and furious. Ellis's voice cracked. So they stole me? Mei Lin nodded. Yes, they took you, and then they made her disappear. It was Evangeline's idea, not Benedict's. He went along with it, but she's the one who orchestrated the smear campaign. The staged car accident, the payoff to the coroner, all of it. Ellis's thoughts swirled like a hurricane. Why would she do that? She needed an A, someone to legitimize the Hawthorne name. You were leverage. The Hawthorne empire, Ellis realized, was built not just on money or code or charisma, but on silence, on destruction, on ashes of someone else's life. Later that night, as the rain tapped gently against the windows, Ellis found Benedict in the conservatory, sitting by the glass wall, staring at the darkness beyond. He looked tired, smaller somehow. She's alive, Ellis said, and I'm going to find her. Benedict didn't argue. Instead, he asked, did she ever tell you about the lake? Ellis shook his head. There's a place, Benedict said, voice low, north of the estate, past the quarry. We used to go there before everything. There's a cottage there, off the grid. It was ours. If she's hiding, she might have gone back. For a moment, Ellis saw a flicker of something in his father's eyes. Regret? Maybe. Or maybe just the weary relief of someone who knows the walls are finally caving in. Early the next morning, Ellis packed a bag and left. The road to the lake was long and winding, carved through dense pine and stone cliffs. Fog clung low to the ground. The forest grew wild and unkempt. It felt like driving into a forgotten part of the world, or of himself. He reached the lake by dusk. It stretched wide and still, like glass reflecting a sky that was bruised purple and gold. The cottage sat nestled at its edge, modest, weather-beaten, and quiet. He stepped out of the car and approached slowly. There was no yellow coat this time. No note. No sign of life. Just silence. He knocked once. Then twice. Nothing. But the third time, the door opened, and there she was. Older, paler, but those eyes, his eyes, looked back at him with tears already forming. You came, she whispered. He couldn't speak, could only nod, could only fall forward into her arms like a child pulled backward through time. They sat by the fire, wrapped in silence that spoke louder than any words. She made tea, lit candles. As night swallowed the forest, Miriam Vale began to speak. They told me you'd forget me, she said, that they'd make you forget. I did, Ellis admitted, but I think some part of me always knew. I had dreams, your lullaby. She smiled softly. The folk song. You called me that, he said, in the tape. I called you that since the day you were born, she said. You were clever, quiet, always watching. Even when they took you from me, I knew you'd grow into someone who could find the truth. Ellis leaned forward. Why now? Why after all these years did you come to the gate? Miriam's expression darkened. Because they're lying about more than just us. What do you mean? There was never an accident. I wasn't the only one they tried to erase. From the bedroom, she brought out a dusty wooden box. Inside were letters, photographs, and a birth certificate. But not Ellis's. It belonged to another child. A daughter, born 3 years after Ellis. Ellis stared at the name. Lena Vale. I had another child, Miriam said, voice trembling. After you were taken. But she didn't make it past age 5. At least, that's what they told me. They said she drowned. But there was no body. Just a note. Just like the one you got. Ellis felt his blood run cold. You think she's alive? Miriam looked him straight in the eyes. I think someone wanted to erase both of my children. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the trees like whispers. Somewhere far away, a storm was beginning to rise. The fire crackled in the old cottage, casting flickering shadows across the walls as Miriam slid the birth certificate toward Ellis. His name still thudded in his ears. Lena Vale, a sister he never knew existed. A life whispered into the dark, snuffed out too soon, or perhaps hidden, just like his own had been. Ellis stared at the tiny handprint stamped in faded ink at the corner of the paper. The date of birth, the hospital's name, everything official, everything real. Why would they hide her? He asked, voice brittle with disbelief. What could they gain by taking both of us? Miriam's eyes were hollow, tired from years of carrying truths no one believed. Because we were never supposed to matter. I was never supposed to matter. Not to them. I was a convenience until I asked for more. When I got pregnant with you, Benedict was thrilled, at first. But when I refused to sign over full custody after the split, they panicked. Evangeline especially. She wanted control of the family narrative. She wanted to craft an heir, not co-parent a real boy with feelings and blood and me. Ellis's stomach twisted. They told me Lena drowned, Miriam continued. A freak accident at the summer house. But there was no funeral, no body, just a closed casket and a vague obituary written by someone I didn't know. Ellis leaned forward. You think she's alive? I know she is, Miriam whispered, because a year ago I got a letter. No return address. Just 5 words. She pulled it from her pocket. A note, identical in style to the one Ellis had received. I remember the red room. Ellis blinked. What does that mean? Miriam didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the corner of the room, knelt down, and peeled back a portion of the rug. Underneath was a wooden panel in the floor, an old trapdoor. She opened it, revealing a box wrapped in plastic and bound in twine. Inside the box was a single photo. It showed 2 children, maybe 5 or 6 years old, standing side by side in front of a door painted deep crimson. Ellis's throat went dry. He recognized himself. But next to him stood a girl, same eyes, same faint scar above her eyebrow. They looked almost like twins. He was holding her hand. And in the corner of the image, Evangeline stood in the background, smiling like a portrait of ice. You think Lena's still with her? Ellis asked. I think Evangeline hid her, Miriam said. Maybe to manipulate Benedict. Maybe as a backup plan if something ever happened to you. Ellis's mind spun. Memories flashed. Odd gaps in time, locked rooms in the mansion, voices in the halls when no one else was there. He remembered once, as a child, hearing a girl crying behind a nursery mirror. He thought it had been a dream. It wasn't. They drove back that night, under a moon smudged by clouds. Miriam clutched the box tight as though afraid the truth might vanish again. The estate loomed ahead, cold and glittering, a monument to wealth and rot. But this time, Ellis didn't walk in with doubt. He walked in with fury. Benedict met them in the hall. His eyes flicked to the box, then to Miriam. You brought her here, he asked, voice low. She belongs here more than any of us, Ellis snapped. And you're going to tell me where Lena is. Benedict faltered, stepping back. She's dead, he said, but the words rang hollow. No, Miriam whispered. She's hidden. Ellis shoved the photo into his father's chest. Where's the red room? Benedict froze. The mansion had 12 wings, 3 sublevels, forgotten rooms sealed behind walls over decades of renovations. And Ellis now knew exactly where to look. The basement. They stormed down the stairs, past storage rooms and cold vaults. There, behind a false wall lined with old books, they found it, a panel of red-painted oak. Ellis pressed his hand against it. It clicked open. Inside was a room so still it felt like time had stopped. A bed, a bookshelf, a small desk with coloring pages stacked neatly, dolls arranged in a perfect line. And in the center of the room, a young woman sat, pale and silent, staring into a mirror. Her reflection turned first. Then she did. Lena Vale. Her eyes were wide, stunned, but not afraid. She rose slowly, taking in the 3 figures standing in the doorway. Her lips trembled as they formed Ellis's name. You're real, she whispered. He stepped forward, tears burning down his face. So are you. Miriam ran to her, collapsing into her arms with a sob that shook the walls. They held each other like people who had never been allowed to love freely. Benedict stood in the doorway, broken. He looked not like a billionaire, but a man haunted by the weight of every silence he ever enforced. Ellis turned to him. "Why?" "I didn't know she was alive," Benedict murmured. Evangeline said, "She died. I believed her. I was weak. I didn't question it. I didn't want to question it." "She was in the house the entire time," Ellis said, voice shaking. "And you never knew." "No," his voice cracked. "But I should have." Behind them, the house creaked, like it, too, was holding a secret. Evangeline was gone. By the time police arrived, she had vanished. No note, no goodbye. But her room had been emptied of its contents. One of the estate cars was missing. So was a safe from the office. Days later, investigators would discover offshore accounts, forged records, evidence that Evangeline had orchestrated not just Miriam's disappearance, but the concealment of Lena for over a decade. Her plan had been precise, cruel, and nearly perfect. Nearly. But she hadn't counted on Miriam surviving, or Ellis remembering, or Lena waiting. In the months that followed, Ellis stepped away from the Hawthorne name. He turned the estate into a foundation for victims of coercive family control and institutional gaslighting. Miriam and Lena moved into the lake cottage together. Rebuilding was slow, and grief lingered in the spaces between them. But it was real. Sometimes Ellis visited just to sit by the lake with them, listening to the lullaby Miriam hummed under her breath. The one about the baby fox. The one they'd all survived. And though the woman at the gate had once been dismissed as strange, nameless, and mad, she was none of those things. She was a mother, and she never gave up.